Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back from your lunch. I hope you got out and stretched the legs or accomplished something productive and you're feeling very satisfied with the direction your life's taking. We've got this afternoon another really interesting session with some renowned experts in their field. This one's on two wheels. So with that, I'm going to now transfer across to Chris Jones, who's going to be speaking. He's the National Secretary of the AEVA, in case anyone didn't know, which I'm sure you already did. So with that, Chris, take it away.
Thank you very much, and good to be on our e-conference for the first time. It seems to be working quite well. I'm speaking to you from Whadjuk Noongar land, which is the Perth Swan Coastal Plain. I'm here at Southwest Metropolitan TAFE, where I work, taking time out to give this talk on electric motorcycles. I'll just share my screen and we'll get started. Basically, there we go. I want to share this one. Okay. So I've sort of called this electric motorcycles fringe of the fringe. Motorcyclists are a little bit special, you might say. Some people call us temporary Australians or organ donors on wheels. But look, we're just alive, that's all, we love it. Two wheels is a wonderful thing. I say that electric motorcycles are on the fringe of the fringe because less than 5% of vehicles registered in Australia, and there's about 20 million vehicles registered, are motorcycles. And there's probably less than 500 electric scooters and probably less than 50 electric motorcycles. So that's the open R-class motorcycle. So we are really on the fringe of the fringe. Frustratingly right now, Harley-Davidson is the only manufacturer offering an open class motorcycle in the Australian market. That's the Livewire. For anyone who really wants to go out and try one, I highly recommend find your nearest Harley dealer who's got one and take it for a ride. It's an absolute hoot. So why two wheels? And two wheels good, not just because I'm a fan of Animal Farm, but it's basically motorcycles are the perfect commuter. Usually there's just one person traveling to a destination and back on a regular basis. So why carry 3 or 4 empty seats with you when you do it? It's the perfect commute and they're perfectly at home in the urban environment. And, you know, you can fit 10 motorcycles for every one car. You don't need to dedicate as much of your city, your livable city, for parking cars. And as the discussion around EV taxes has been evolving, motorcycles and scooters do virtually zero impact on the roads that we ride on. So that's a really important thing from a maintenance perspective. Now, electric bikes basically adds another dimension to it. They're quiet, clean, incredibly low maintenance. I, for one, hate working on vehicles, especially my motorbike. Some people love it. No, I've got better things to do. I'd rather ride it. That's why electric bikes have always appealed to me. They are genuinely more fun to ride, and it really comes down to torque. When someone buys a 250cc petrol bike and they can't wait to upgrade to the big bike, it's because they want torque. It's not power. Power is what you get for free, but torque is what you pay for. So the great thing about electric motorbikes is even a low-powered electric motorcycle has oodles of torque. And that's really what makes them fun to ride. Your ability to slip into a gap in traffic really quickly or just have fun on a windy road. But I think critically, and what I'd like to really hammer home in this presentation is that they are actually the most affordable, speedy EV. I say speedy because electric push bikes are even more affordable, but they're not really on the open road kind of class. But they are truly the most affordable EV. And although many of the options are quite expensive, they're still cheaper than an electric car. So I think this really delivers maximum benefit to the rider and the city that they live in. There's a reason why there aren't many electric motorcycles around the world, but in Australia in particular, and it really comes down to the same problems that we had with electric cars about 10 years ago. And that was limited model availability. Right, like I said, right now you can only buy a Harley Davidson as an open bike. You can buy Fonzarelli and V-Moto scooters right now, but in terms of open motorcycles, it's about one. They do come with a high price compared to an equivalent internal combustion engine bike, somewhere between 2 and 3 times the cost. The Harley Livewire is a $50,000 motorcycle, which having built an electric motorcycle that's kind of up there in performance, yeah, I believe that. That's about what they cost. They also have limited riding range. Most motorcyclists would be happy with a bike that can do sort of 300 Ks and then recharge rapidly. But 200 kilometers at modest speeds is about the limit where we're at. And I'll get to why that's the case in a minute. Manufacturers are still working out reliability. Motorcycles are more exposed than motor cars. So water ingress, dust ingress is a big problem. Many manufacturers of motorcycles have been struggling to get these issues under control. Zero has been working tirelessly to ever improve their batteries. And the next incarnation that they've got is quite reliable, but it's a completely sealed, potted, epoxy encapsulated battery. That seems to be the only way to guarantee reliability. Of course, that adds cost and complexity to the manufacturing of these bikes. There's low market demand for motorcycles, let alone electric ones. I think, as I said, 5% of the fleet, other motorcycling mad communities like Italy and Spain and most of Southeast Asia, that would be a very different number, probably in the double digits. So for as long as the demand is quite low, I think we will see cars taking off. As I said, I think motorcycles are where cars were about 10 or 12 years ago. And the other reason for low volumes is limited utility. And I'll explain this subject of utility. If you ask any motorcyclist how many bikes is the right number of bikes, they'll probably give you an answer somewhere between 3 and 7 bikes. But that's because bikes that are great for doing, trials, trail bikes, farm bikes, motocross, sports touring, cruisers, there's a class and a category for everyone. And I think because of the phenomenal energy density of petrol, internal combustion engine bikes are generally great at the one thing that they were made for, and usually pretty good at all the other things. I wouldn't go riding a Suzuki sports bike through a flooded creek crossing, but they probably hold their own okay as a commuter. You can ride long distances on it and it's not the end of the world. But electric bikes tend to do one thing pretty well, but they're usually not very good at other things. So they might be a brilliant commuter, but they won't be good for long range. Or you might be able to work on one that does do some pretty long trips, but it'll do it slowly and it'll be heavy. And I think that's where the bikes need to, obviously energy density of batteries needs to improve and things need to get cheaper and lighter and basically make the motorcycling experience a bit more, add a bit more utility to your bike. I mean, if you're going to spend, $20 to $30 or even $50,000 on a motorcycle, it'd be great if you could do a few more things with it than just ride to work. So what does the two-wheeled electric motorcycle market need? I think we can take a few lessons from Honda here, who designed the Honda Cub, the single most popular vehicle on the planet. I think it's 100cc or an 80cc motorcycle. Most of Asia rides it. And they worked out that just the right amount of power is somewhere between 5 and 15 kilowatts of power. If you've got 100 Ks range, then 95% of your trips are completely covered. But critically, we need to get the price of these bikes under $5,000. And, full credit to Michelle and Fonzarelli. They've got some great products there. And they're just scraping in under that mark, but we really need more of them, more options. In the 25 to 35 kilowatt range, so that's up to about 50 horsepower, probably the equivalent of maybe a 400cc petrol bike. With 200 Ks range, it's sort of big enough to be useful. Ideally, we want those bikes to be under $10,000. You can currently pick one up from a motorcycle dealer, brand new petrol bike for about $5,000 to $7,000. So I think that would be the ideal place to be. And for your 100 kilowatt sports bikes and touring bikes with lots of range, they're always going to be more expensive. They're going to demand huge batteries, bigger than sort of 15 kilowatt hours worth of battery, and you're not going to get change out of $30,000. Like I said, the Harley's 50,000. If the Zero SR was to be on sale in Australia, and we hope that one day it will, it's still going to be a $35,000, $38,000 motorcycle. So this is one of the few cases where building your own electric motorcycle is actually a viable option, simply because the options aren't out there right now. And if you've got any questions and you want to convert your own bike or build your own bike, get in touch with AEVA. There's quite a few of us, myself included, who've done that, and we'd be more than happy to help. But I've also said here that we've got a good grounds for government support for two-wheeled EVs, not least because they relieve congestion, they're affordable. So if you offered a $1,000 rebate on a $5,000 EV, that's a good chunk. That's 20%. You're not going to offer that kind of 20% discount on cars just because they're too expensive. It decreases demands on infrastructure. Like I said, you can stick a road user charge on it and multiply it by weight, and you'll end up with something that's far, far cheaper than a car. So I think EVs, two-wheeled EVs, really do represent the best bang for buck. On why electric motorcycles are not easy things to design, I've got a list of, this is an Energica Ego, which is a beautiful electric motorcycle. They're actually racing them in Formula E as part of the MotoGP circuit. They're built in Italy. Again, they're about a $45,000 motorcycle, but very good. There's a lot of challenges that you need to overcome that we've sort of spent the last 100 years perfecting with internal combustion. Look at the placement of the electric motor in this vehicle. I don't think my mouse, if you can see my mouse, I'm sort of pointing where the motor is. It's kind of under the seat, but above the swing arm pivot. That's an interesting location for the motor. There's a mechanical jack shaft that connects it to the drive shaft. And that's all been done because the battery is so damn big. The battery takes up so much space, and it's really quite a challenge to make everything fit. You have to balance the center of gravity of everything. There's all sorts of other complications, including cooling. Do you cool your battery? Most motorcycle manufacturers, EV motorcycles, aren't cooling their batteries, but they are cooling the drivetrain. And of course, there's all the other motorbike stuff, suspension, frame geometry, brakes, wheels, that kind of stuff is really important too. And new e-motorcycle manufacturers would do well to remember that. I'll just summarize with Voltron Evo, which was the race bike that I built back in 2014. We raced it for 3 years. It only had a 6 kilowatt hour battery. It had a racing range of about 14 kilometers, but it was fast and 214 kilos. It cost $52,000 to build. However, if you wanted a super duper Honda Fireblade petrol bike with, let's face it, pretty similar performance and practically identical price, we're not that far off. And I think at that end of the motorcycle spectrum, electric motorcycling has got a pretty cool future. So I think, yes, price will come down, and it should come down. So I live in hope that we'll see that soon.